Remote workers figured out something nobody has fully reckoned with since the pandemic. You can work from anywhere. Most are still paying rent in cities built around a commute they no longer make. Canada has towns trying to fix that. Two of them will give you the land for free. Let us start with the town Toronto people discovered and have been quietly telling each other to stop mentioning. Collingwood, Ontario. Housing prices in Collingwood sit around 650,000 Canadian dollars for a detached home. It was sitting around 320,000 Canadian dollars before 2020. In Toronto, that buys a parking space with ambitions. Collingwood sits on Georgian Bay at the base of the Niagara Escarpment, 90 minutes north of Toronto, in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples. Blue Mountain Ski Resort is 15 minutes away. The bay is swimmable from June through September. The downtown has independent restaurants, a farmer's market, and a main street that still functions like a main street. The remote work infrastructure is solid. Fiber internet is available across most of the town. The municipality invested specifically in digital connectivity after the post-COVID influx of Toronto workers made clear that it was the baseline requirement, not a perk. There are co-working spaces near the downtown core. The hospital is regional. The downside is that Collingwood has been discovered. The rental market is tight. Summer weekends feel like a different town from the one that exists in February. The community identity is still negotiating between longtime locals and the wave of Toronto transplants who arrived with city salaries and different expectations. This town is for remote workers who need to stay within Ontario's urban corridor and want mountain access without Alberta prices. Not for anyone who needs a quiet off-season or a true escape from city energy. The next town sits between two of the most famous mountain destinations in the country. Somehow it has managed not to become either of them. Squamish, British Columbia. 45 minutes from Vancouver, 45 minutes from Whistler, somehow neither of them. Squamish sits at the head of Howe Sound in the traditional territory of the Squamish Nation. The Stiwamis Chief, a granite monolith that draws rock climbers from across the world, is visible from the main road through town. Average home price around 900,000 Canadian dollars, which sounds like a lot until you look at what either city on either side of it charges. The tech worker migration to Squamish started around 2018 and accelerated through COVID. The town has responded with infrastructure to match. Fiber is available across the core. Co-working spaces have opened along the Cleveland Avenue corridor. The community is young and outdoors oriented. The downside is the highway. The Sea to Sky corridor is a single road and it closes during weather events, rock slides, and accidents. When it closes, Squamish is isolated. The housing market is tight and Vancouver prices are gradually following the workers north. This town is for outdoor-first remote workers who can handle proximity to a major city as a convenience rather than a crutch. Not for anyone who needs urban amenities within walking distance on a regular basis. From the coast to wine country, the next town had a reputation for day trips. Remote workers turned it into a destination. Prince Edward County, Ontario, 2.5 hours from Toronto. Wine, oysters, beaches, and a main street in Picton that looks like it was assembled by someone with good taste and a reasonable budget. Average home price around 600,000 Canadian dollars, which was 380,000 Canadian dollars before 2020. Prince Edward County is a limestone peninsula in Lake Ontario, in the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples. The soil produces Pinot Noir and Chardonnay that consistently wins national awards. Sandbanks Provincial Park has dunes and a freshwater beach that photographs like somewhere considerably warmer. The arts community is established enough to have galleries, studios, and a theater festival. Fiber is available in most areas. The hospital in Belleville is 20 minutes from Picton. The farmers market and the independent restaurants operate year-round. The downside is seasonality. Many businesses close from November through April. Social life thins considerably in winter. The early mover advantage on pricing is largely gone. Property taxes are higher than comparable Ontario small towns. This town is for remote workers who prioritize lifestyle quality and proximity to nature with a food culture attached. Not for anyone who needs a dense social scene through all 4 seasons. The next town gets 30 feet of snow per year. That is not a warning. For the right person, that is the entire pitch. Fernie, British Columbia. Fernie Alpine Resort gets around 30 feet of snow per year. The ski terrain is steep, technical, and long. The town at the base has a population of around 5,500 people, a functioning high street of local businesses, and average home prices around 650,000 Canadian dollars. Fernie sits in the Elk Valley in southeastern BC, in the traditional territory of the Cunaksa people, far enough from major urban centers that it avoided the first wave of the remote work migration. That window is closing. The second wave arrived around 2022, drawn by the skiing and a cost of housing that still makes sense compared to Whistler or Canmore. The remote work infrastructure is functional. Fiber is available in most of the town. The co-working space on 2nd Avenue runs a waiting list. The nearest hospital with full services is in Cranbrook, 45 minutes west. The downside is the valley. Fernie has one main road in, and the nearest significant city is Calgary, 3 hours east. The job market outside of tourism and resource extraction is thin, and ski town boom cycles have historically ended in places that could not hold their working population once the novelty wore off. This town is for remote workers who want a genuine mountain lifestyle as a daily reality. Not for anyone who needs urban infrastructure within an hour or a job market with options. 7 towns left. And the free land has not appeared yet. When it does, the prices you have been reading are going to feel complicated in a specific way. The next town has a UNESCO waterfront, a harbor, and a home price that will make you question everything you thought you knew about Nova Scotia. Lunenburg, Nova Scotia. A UNESCO World Heritage waterfront with colorful wooden houses stacked along a harbor, a working fishing fleet, and craft breweries where the boat builders used to drink. Average home price around 350,000 Canadian dollars. A UNESCO-listed harbor town costs roughly what a Toronto parking space sells for on a good month. Lunenburg sits on the south shore of Nova Scotia in Mi'kmaq territory, about an hour from Halifax by highway. The town is small, around 2,400 people, but carries a density of craft, food, and culture that towns 5 times its size struggle to match. The Bluenose 2, the schooner on the Canadian dime, is home ported here. Fiber is available. Halifax is close enough for the hospital, the airport, and the things a town of 2,400 cannot provide on its own. The downside is the scale. 2,400 people means everyone knows everything within 48 hours. The winter is Atlantic, meaning wet and gray for 5 months. The housing market has tightened as the South Shore became a known quantity. This town is for remote workers who want beauty, community, and proximity to a city without living in one. Not for anyone who needs anonymity or a large social pool to draw from. The next town is the fastest growing municipality in British Columbia. The window to get in before it prices out is measured in months, not years. Revelstoke, British Columbia. Revelstoke is the town that is actively becoming something else. The question is whether you get there before it finishes. Revelstoke Mountain Resort has the longest ski run in North America. Average home price around 750,000 Canadian dollars, which was 450,000 Canadian dollars in 2019. The town sits where the Columbia River meets the Trans-Canada Highway in the BC Interior Mountains, in the traditional territory of the Secwepemc and Ktunaxa peoples. The old downtown has Art Deco buildings and a main street that has not yet been fully converted to tourist retail. The remote work infrastructure is improving but uneven. Fiber exists in parts of town. The nearest hospital with full surgical capacity is in Kamloops, 2 hours west. The downside is trajectory. Early remote workers report a community that is still coherent. Later arrivals report a town starting to feel expensive and crowded relative to what drew them there. This town is for remote workers who can get there before the next price jump, not for anyone who needs stability and predictability in their cost of living over the next 5 years. 2 more towns before the list changes completely. The next one puts you inside the Rockies. The one after gives you land at cost. And the one after that gives it to you free. Canmore, Alberta. Aspen costs 3 times more in US dollars. Whistler costs twice as much in Canadian dollars. Canmore has the same mountains. Alberta has no provincial sales tax. Canmore sits directly adjacent to Banff National Park, in the traditional territory of the Nakota, Blackfoot, and Tsuut'ina peoples. The Rockies are not visible from Canmore. They are Canmore. Average home price around 950,000 Canadian dollars. Comparable properties in Aspen or Jackson Hole run 2 to 3 times that number in US dollars. The remote work infrastructure is strong. The town grew around outdoor professionals who built the connectivity and co-working culture before the mainstream remote work wave arrived. Calgary is 90 minutes east with a major international airport. Trail running from your door, skiing at Norquay in 20 minutes or Lake Louise in 45. The downside is cost. Canmore is the most expensive town on this list outside Squamish. The rental market is brutal. The workforce housing crisis is documented and ongoing. The no sales tax advantage is partially offset by Alberta property taxes. This town is for remote workers with strong incomes who want the definitive Canadian mountain lifestyle. Not for anyone who needs affordable housing or is working within a realistic budget. Now the list changes. The next 3 towns are where land stops being expensive and starts being something closer to free. Whitehorse, Yukon. The Yukon government runs a crown land program that lets residents apply for parcels at a fraction of what comparable land costs anywhere in southern Canada. It is not free. It is a government process with conditions and timelines. But the outcome is land at a price that makes the word free feel close enough to matter. Whitehorse is a city of 28,000 people in the traditional territory of the Kwanlin Dune First Nation and the Ta'an Quachin Council. It has a hospital, restaurants, an arts scene, a university college, and fiber internet. It also has the northern lights from October through March and 20 hours of daylight in summer. The cost of living is high by Canadian small-town standards, driven by the logistics of supplying a northern city. The land opportunity compensates in ways that do not appear in home price comparisons. Average January temperature sits around -15 Celsius, with wind chill regularly reaching -35. The downside is the north. Whitehorse is accessible by highway and daily flights to Vancouver, Calgary, and Edmonton. It is still Whitehorse. Winter is serious. The isolation is structural. This town is for remote workers who want a life reset that is genuinely transformative. Not for anyone who needs easy urban access or a moderate climate. That was land you apply for at cost. The next town gives you the lot for free. Mundare, Alberta. Mundare has a population of around 850 people and a 12-meter fiberglass kielbasa sausage on the main street. It is a Ukrainian heritage town about an hour east of Edmonton, in the traditional territory of the Nahayal, Nakota, and Blackfoot peoples. And it has offered free 50 by 140-foot residential lots to people who commit to building a home on them within 2 years. The program conditions are real but not onerous. The town wants residents, not speculators, and the free lot is the mechanism for attracting one and excluding the other. Edmonton is an hour west with a major international airport, a major hospital system, full urban infrastructure, and no provincial sales tax. For a remote worker, a monthly trip for meetings or errands is entirely manageable. The downside is Mundare itself. 850 people is a community, not a town with amenities. The social infrastructure is churches, a community hall, and the giant sausage. The weather is Alberta prairie, meaning hot summers and genuinely cold winters. And free lot programs in small towns have a history of attracting people who build and then quietly leave. This town is for remote workers who want genuinely cheap land close to a major city and are prepared to build something real. Not for anyone who needs social density or lifestyle infrastructure. Alberta offers a free lot near Edmonton. The next province offers free land in a community already built around exactly what you are looking for. Craik, Saskatchewan. Craik has about 400 residents, sits 90 minutes north of Regina on Highway 11 in the traditional territory of the Nehiyaw Cree peoples, and operates an eco-village project that has offered free serviced residential lots to people who commit to sustainable building and active community participation. The conditions include energy efficiency requirements, a construction timeline, and attendance at community planning meetings. In exchange, the land costs nothing. The community that built around this program is specific in character. Passive house builders, off-grid enthusiasts, and people who moved from cities because the project offered a coherent reason to be in a small Saskatchewan town rather than a random one. The social infrastructure that developed is more intentional than most towns 5 times the size. The nearest hospital with full services is in Regina, 90 minutes south on a 2-lane highway. Saskatchewan winter at this latitude is not theoretical. The downside is the specificity. Craik's freeland is not for everyone. The community expectations are real. If the philosophy is not something you share, the conditions attached to the free land will feel like obligations rather than alignment. This town is for remote workers who want to build something from the ground up alongside people who made the same decision. Not for anyone who wants cheap land without community investment. 2 towns left. Number 1 has the best combination of livable infrastructure and the single most counterintuitive price point on this entire list. Moosomin, Saskatchewan. Moosomin sits on the Trans-Canada Highway where Saskatchewan meets Manitoba, about 200 kilometers east of Regina, in the traditional territory of the Nakota and Nehiyaw peoples. Population around 2,500. It has a hospital, a school system, grocery stores, a recreation center, and a weekly newspaper that has been publishing since 1884. Average home price around 175,000 Canadian dollars. Moosomin's economy is stable in a way that most small prairie towns are not. The municipality has run housing incentive programs including reduced cost serviced lots and cash incentives for new residents who build or buy. The MrCanada location means you are never more than a tank of gas from Winnipeg to the east or Regina to the west. The downside is that Moosomin is a prairie service town. The lifestyle is not dramatic. The landscape is flat and wide and can feel relentless in winter. The social infrastructure serves the community that lives there, rather than the community you might have imagined living alongside. This town is for remote workers who want stability, affordability, and a functional town without the lifestyle premium that drives prices up everywhere else. Not for anyone who needs mountains, ocean, or cultural density to feel at home. The town at number 1 has been doing something no other municipality on this list has managed. It is getting people to stay. Elliott Lake, Ontario. The average home price in Elliott Lake is around 130,000 Canadian dollars. This is Ontario. That number is not a typo. Elliott Lake sits in northern Ontario, 140 kilometers west of Sudbury, on the north shore of Lake Huron, in the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe peoples. It was built in the 1950s as a uranium mining town, designed at city scale for a population of 25,000. The mines closed. Most of the people left. The infrastructure stayed. What remained is a town of around 10,000 people with a regional hospital, a recreation center with an Olympic-sized pool, fiber internet, a shopping mall, and residential streets where a 3-bedroom detached home with a yard sells for between 80,000 Canadian dollars and 150,000 Canadian dollars. Dozens of fishing and swimming lakes are within 10 minutes of downtown. Average January temperature sits around -12 Celsius, with significant lake effect snow from Lake Huron that keeps the winters heavy but predictable. After 2020, the municipality pivoted and began actively recruiting remote workers. Your dollar goes further here than anywhere else in Ontario. The infrastructure is real, and Sudbury is 90 minutes away when you need a city. Active housing incentive programs have offered additional financial support for people who commit to the move. The honest downside is that Elliott Lake is a town still negotiating its identity. The population has been declining for 30 years. Downtown has vacancies that reflect a community working through what it wants to become. The winters are northern Ontario, meaning cold and long. But here is what makes it number 1. Every other town on this list trades lifestyle for affordability. Better lifestyle costs more. More affordable means less lifestyle. Elliott Lake breaks that pattern. The lakes are there. The forest is there, the hospital is there, the infrastructure is there. The price makes no sense by any Ontario metric, which means the window for it making sense for you is still open. What every town on this list has in common is that the thing making it worth living in is the same thing that kept it off the radar. The ones that stayed quiet long enough are still affordable. The ones that got discovered are racing toward the prices people were trying to escape. The window moves. Which town is still in it for you? Drop the name in the comments and tell me what is holding you back. And if someone in your life has been sitting on the remote work dream without pulling the trigger, send this to them.